Kia ora, and welcome to Game of Thrones in about 3 minutes. It is a game for 3 to 6 players. There is no solo mode. Playing time is over 3 hours. It's a pretty complex game. King Robert is dead, and his son Joffrey sits on the Iron Throne. Stannis Baratheon declares him illegitimate and claims the throne, as does his brother Renly with the support of House Tyrell. Robb Stark declares himself king in the north, and the Martells and Greyjoys ready for war. Only one can win the Game of Thrones and triumph in this clash of kings. Will you take the Iron Throne, or will you become a feast for crows? You win if you capture 7 cities. The game then immediately ends. Competitive. Only one house can win the Iron Throne. Hidden orders. Orders in this game are placed on the board face down. Card management. Cannot reclaim cards until you've used them all. Auctions. You make bids for power or to defeat the wildlings. Player turn. Each player has 15 order tokens, 10 basic defense, raid, march, assist, and consolidate orders. There are also 5 upgraded orders, of which you can only use as many as your place on the Raven track here shows. Orders are placed on the board face down, and then revealed simultaneously. The Iron Throne track determines player order. Raids go first, and can remove an adjacent assist or consolidate order. If they remove a consolidate order, that player loses 1 power, and you gain 1. March is next. You can march from one area to any others adjacent. Ships act as bridges for movement, making areas linked by ships count as adjacent. Combat occurs when you march into an enemy area. Combat strength is counted by the units in the fight, as well as any assists. Knights are 2 strength and footmen 1. In this case, black has 6 combat strength and red has 4. The red march order doesn't help here. Black has 3 assists and red 2. Each player then selects one of their leader cards and adds its value to their total. Optionally, you can also add tie to battle cards, adding their strength to your total. Finally, the black player uses the Valyrian Steel Blade to add 1, and because they are ahead of red on the Fiefdoms track, they win the tie. Defeated armies retreat. Swords on leader cards determine unit losses, but each tower symbol blocks a sword. Consolidate is last, and allows you to collect power based on the number of crowns showing. At the end of the turn, you reveal cards from these decks. Deck 1 will contain mustering and supply cards, which determine if you get new units and how many units you can support in your armies. Deck 2 will either have you gain power or bid on positions on the tracks. Bidding is closed and ties are broken by the player holding the Iron Throne. You bid on each of these tracks one after the other. The final deck has game-changing events or wildling attacks. Wildling attacks are also bid on based on where the wildling marker is. If you win, the highest bidder gets a benefit. If you lose, the lowest bidder gets hurt. Why would you like this game? This is the definitive Game of Thrones game if you want to capture the feeling of the epic battles for the throne in the first half of the series. The game shines when it is played like a diplomatic game, where deals are made and alliance is maintained until they end with sudden but inevitable betrayal. The various tracks and how you bid on them makes for some very interesting decisions, especially for the holder of the Iron Throne, who decides ties, as they can punish their rivals and boost their allies. The diceless combat is great, and I personally do not like playing with the optional tides of battle cards. And each house has their own hand of cards with unique powers and abilities. The best thing about this game is winning as House Lannister. However, this game is not remotely casual friendly. I have heard numerous horror stories of fans of the show picking it up and just getting overwhelmed by it. Early mistakes in the game can essentially eliminate a player from winning and result in them sitting at the table for hours, not having much fun. Oh, and if you're looking for Daenerys and her dragons, those are in an expansion. Game of Thrones shares a lot in common with the classic diplomacy. And for casual board game fans of Game of Thrones, I'd recommend checking out The Hand of the King. A Game of Thrones, the red wedding of games. If you enjoyed this video, like it, subscribe to the channel, and check out our Patreon.